doing this. Title sequence! Do something big for my 200th episode, right? In 6 years of TV trash, we've covered many types of TV series, episodes, movies, and other programs. From sitcoms to cartoons to action dramas, and yes, even delving into reality TV. But there's one particular type of show we have yet to do a full detailed review of. The soap opera! I briefly touched on this all the way back in my guilty pleasures list, but I don't think there's much doubt that daytime drama is one of the craziest and definitely most polarizing forms of television ever made. There is pretty much no middle ground with these shows. You either love them to the point of outright obsession, or you cannot fathom in any way, shape, or form how anyone could like them. And I can't just go and review any old soap. Oh no, I can't go halfway. It's got to be hands down the most insane daytime drama ever created by mankind. So for the 200th episode of TV Trash, prepare yourself for the absolute lunacy that is passion.
The hand of the one who could lead me places.
Remember how Scream was meant to wreck the slasher movie genre by turning inside out all of its tropes? Passions may very well be the daytime drama equivalent to that. Passions was the creation of James E. Riley, a former Days of Our Lives writer who achieved notoriety in 1995 when he crafted a storyline where the character of Marlena Evans was possessed by Satan. The story arc drew massive ratings, but also some dissent from older fans of the show who felt the spiritual and mythological elements were not suitable for the show. So NBC just decided to give Riley his own show where he could craft whatever he wanted. And good golly, Miss Molly, did he run with that! Strap in tight, kids, because this coaster is going full throttle as we delve into the absolute insanity that is passions. So the show opens in the pristine little New England town of Harmony, where we're first introduced to Miguel and Luis Lopez Fitzgerald. And yes, Miguel for the first 5 seasons was played by Jesse Metcalfe, who would go on to play the title character of John Tucker Must Die, John Rowland on Desperate Housewives, and Chris Ewing in the revived Dallas. Luis is a deputy in the Harmony Police Department and has a pretty unhealthy hatred for the richest family in town, the Cranes. See, some time ago their father, who worked for the Cranes, disappeared with no explanation, and Luis is sure the Cranes know something about it. So he's devoted his life and position to making their lives hell.
Our sister serving up burgers and fries? I don't think so.
I think so. She's gonna take that job whether she likes it or not. It's time our sister stopped fantasizing she's some rich debutante and face reality.
This is clearly a problem because not only does his mother Pilar still work for the Cranes as a housemaid and has a good relationship with them, but his younger sister Teresa is infatuated with Ethan Crane.
I'm getting married. Married? To Ethan Crane.
Which itself is a problem because Ethan is engaged, and every time he and Teresa bump into each other, bad things happen.
This was all your fault.
My fault? Who knocked over the can of paint on my head?
You shouldn't have been standing there.
I shouldn't have...
Should we just start the pool now on what point in the series they're finally gonna bang one another? We're also introduced to Ethan's Aunt Sheridan, who is currently living in Paris, mostly spending her time pining over her friend that died in a car accident 2 years earlier.
Oh, Diana, why did you have to die? Where are you? Oh, the Ritz. Are you and Dodie still gonna stop by here on your way back to his place?
Yeah! I'll talk more about her later because believe me, there will be a lot to talk about there. We also meet the Bennett family, where the father Sam is the new police chief and his 2 daughters, well, we'll talk more about them later.
I could have been with Miguel. Watching that gorgeous face, the incredible body, making sure that big-mouthed little sister of mine doesn't say anything. I swear, if she tells him, death will be too good for her.
Still, for the most part, we haven't seen that much difference between this and your normal run-of-the-mill soap opera.
It's time, Grace. I've come for you.
I'm ready for battle, and this time I will not lose.
Do not steal their souls this time.
Try and stop me. Grace is going to regret it if she goes up against old Tabitha. Isn't that right, Timmy?
That's right, Tabitha. We're gonna win. We're gonna win.
Get the straitjacket on standby! Oh yes! So this show features a local class war between a Hispanic working class family and the richest clan in town, which includes the former having a daughter practically stalking the eldest son of the latter, and the richest family has a member living overseas obsessing about her dead friend Princess Diana. And all of that takes a backseat to a 300-year-old practitioner of the occult that wants to suck all of the souls in town with the aid of her own Chucky doll, and the only ones who can stop them are an amnesiac resident of the town who's being haunted by the offspring of Casper the Friendly Ghost and Wendy the Good Witch. And yes, you heard that right. The witch's name is Tabitha. Yeah, okay, it's Tabitha Lennox in this show, and it couldn't be Samantha's daughter because she's already 300, but still, throwing in even that little bewitched shout-out is a nice touch that does kind of make all of this insanity somewhat worth enduring. And spoiler alert, it won't be the last. What do I mean by that?
Calling Dr. Bombay. Calling Dr. Bombay. Emergency. Come right away. It's you!
Yes, in one episode, they actually brought in Bernard Fox to reprise his old role as Dr. Bombay. This is only the beginning, people!
Oh, he's a quack. He couldn't help himself across the street.
I don't have to stand insults from the likes of you. You were so smart, so full of yourself. I could have saved you when they were burning you at the stake, but would you listen? No.
So Grace Bennett, who 20 years earlier was rescued from a fire by her eventual husband, isn't that about as fairy tale a backstory as you can get? Remembers nothing that happened before that incident. What she will eventually discover is that she has a twin sister, Faith, who does remember Grace, but has never found her because Faith has been on the run all these years from the forces of evil like Tabitha. See, Faith's daughter Charity supposedly has great powers that she won't fully realize until she reaches full maturity. But these powers are apparently a great threat to Tabitha. So much of the first season involves Tabitha trying to kill Faith and Charity, or at least make sure they never meet Grace, often with the aid of either Timmy or her demonic masters that live in the Hellmouth in her basement. So this is what soap opera writers come up with after binge-watching Nick at Night on magic mushrooms. This all makes Sheridan Crane's life look tame by comparison. First, she almost dies in the exact same fashion as her friend did, running from the paparazzi through the same tunnel. Yeah, I bet Diana's fans really loved reminiscing this. Then she chooses to go back to Harmony after discovering her fiancé was just using her for money to pay off loan sharks who then try to kill her for having seen the boss's face. Then when she eludes the mob without even knowing they were after her, yeah, that plot element isn't brought up again for the rest of the year. Nor is her relationship with Diana, so the first 20 episodes of Sheridan amount to jack. What we eventually will learn is the reason she left Harmony years ago is because she may have killed someone as a kid if her dreams were any indicator. Never be part of a wealthy family in a soap opera, kiddies. You'll end up in a Shakespearean tragedy. It's just too bad those storylines keep getting bogged down because they keep going back to Teresa's extremely unhealthy obsession with Ethan Crane and her attempts to get close to him despite him, you know, being engaged and all the accidents she's caused leading him to thinking she's a stalker. Which might not be that inaccurate. Then when she finally gives up on trying to get Ethan to fall for her for the moment, she still wants to take the job his mother offered her, which means turning herself into Clara Kent here so that Ethan won't recognize her, especially since he's hired a PI to try and find her. Teresa is kind of stupid. And then there's the even lamer plot involving Grace's own two daughters and their constant bitch fighting trying to ruin each other's lives and their own love triangles like 90210 Jr. It's centered mainly around Kay being in love with Miguel, while Miguel has the hots for Charity, and Jessica, who yes was played by Mary Elizabeth Winstead in the first season, is obsessed with making sure her own sister doesn't get Miguel. At least I think that's what that's all about, because that was among the storylines I skimmed past the most in order to make sure I got this review out before Election Day. And therein lies not just the biggest issue with this show, but I also think the real problem a lot of people have with soap operas in general. It's not the overly melodramatic storylines relying on too many idiot balls to count, or the incredibly ham-fisted acting. No, it's that while most TV episodes focus on one central plot and maybe one or two side plots, daytime drama almost always has 5 or 6 plots, if not more, running at once, and tries to cover nearly all of them in a single episode while dragging each one of them along for weeks while airing 5 daily episodes each week. As a result, in a single act of each episode, you rarely get more than a minute's worth of one storyline before they quickly cut to a whole other set of characters you may or may not care anything about. And that's what made watching this show particularly frustrating, because the plot involving Tabitha and her adversarial relationship with Grace and Faith gets stretched out to infinity plus 10. It takes nearly 20 episodes for Tabitha to finally try to kill Charity, and then they drag that one plot point through nearly 3 episodes. And after it fails, the next plan to keep Faith and Charity away from Grace is dragged out over the next 5. Keep in mind that would have only taken 5 weeks for us to get to this point, but it feels like forever due to each hour-long episode containing less than 10 minutes worth of each plot that most of the audiences really cared about. It can get extremely frustrating to see the 2 plots that actually have some good tension that can wrap in a viewer get shown only bits at a time so they can go back to Kay trying to seduce Miguel away from Charity using a padded bra, while her sister Jessica tries to ruin it using Miguel's best friend, who's the worst nerd stereotype since Screech. By the 50th episode, Grace and Faith have finally connected, but before they can meet in person, Tabitha burns down Faith's house and Faith is supposedly killed. So with that type of tension and tragedy, of course we need to cut to Kay's plan to seduce Miguel into taking her virginity. Imagine a storyline that might have fit into something like Buffy, Charmed, or Supernatural, but it gets stretched out and mixed up with a bunch of pointless filler laid out like DC's Countdown. Charity survives thanks to Miguel saving her from the fire, but when she comes to in the hospital, she has amnesia. This show isn't even 4 months old and it's already reusing plot elements. About the only thing dumber would be if Tabitha also started the fire that nearly killed Grace. 200 episodes and I still haven't learned how to not tempt fate. Tabitha, who's now had her powers taken away by her friends from the other side, convinces Charity that her mother may still be alive and to go back home to find her. But of course, this is just so Tabitha can ambush her, knock her out with drugs, and tie her to the railroad tracks. Yep, when magic is no longer available, resort to the Dick Dastardly Book of Evil. Of course, it has to be Miguel that saves Charity, and she eventually moves in with the Bennetts. Should I just start a counter on how many times Miguel is gonna save Charity's life? Then when Tabitha's plot to send demons after her and Grace on Halloween are thwarted by the priest and Little Miss Glowfriend, Tabitha finally considers adding a new ally in Kay. Oh, and if you're wondering what happened with Sheridan, she became Luis's new target for sticking it to the Cranes, as he arrests her every chance he gets and makes her do community service work for a reckless driving charge. And do I even need to say this is gonna turn into a Dave and Maddie relationship?
Just stay away from me and let me do my job.
And I am totally not going to go home and have wet dreams about you! Good night, we're more than 90 episodes in and we haven't even completed the first season! In fact, this show premiered in July of 1999 and we're now only in November's episodes! Ethan finally discovers that Teresa was his supposed stalker, but he agrees to not send her to jail or get her mother fired if she'll stay away from him forever. But he eventually takes that demand back when he finally learns she didn't mean to hurt him all those times. But they still need to stay apart as often as possible because Gwen is beginning to get jealous, and not helping is Ethan's father Julian trying to encourage him to be a player. But more than anything, Ethan and Sheridan begin wanting to know why Luis hates their family so much and what exactly happened with Sheridan that night when she was a kid, as Ethan's the only one who will believe her that something happened that night. It looks like everything is connected to his grandfather, Alistair Crane, who keeps threatening to come back to town to handle Sheridan's behavior. Yes, whatever happened that night with Sheridan, it's pretty much implied that her uncle will be willing to kill her to keep it secret. Jeez Louise, the Ewings would say this family goes too far! When Luis first confronts Julian about his father's disappearance, he tries to convince him that his father had been embezzling from the Cranes and ran away, especially when just at that time the APB they took out on him comes up saying someone with his social security number is living in New Mexico. And of course, when Teresa hears this, her concern is how Ethan is going to hate them all for what their dad did to his family. She is just so charming! Soon after, when Sheridan finds out she'd been sent to Paris the same time Martin Fitzgerald disappeared, this leads her to fear that she actually killed Martin, which I think was the suspicion of only 70% of the viewers about 10 to 15 episodes ago. This leads her to hopping on the family jet to New Mexico, but not without Luis in tow, because he doesn't trust her claim that it's to help Pilar, and not at all because he's obsessed with her whatsoever. Better place your bet soon on when those two are gonna bang, because it looks like we're about to start the home stretch there. Meanwhile, as Tabitha goes to the Bennetts to check up on Charity, Miss I'm Not One of Charlie's Angels goes outright and practically possesses Charity. And she's supposed to be the good guy? And this starts Charity identifying Tabitha as
Evil! Evil! Evil!
Evil! Evil!
We get another failed attempt to kill Charity, followed by a flashback to Puritan times, where Charity's ancestor sentenced Tabitha to be burned at the stake. I'd make a rant about how witches weren't burned back then, but it's pretty damn clear historical accuracy is dead last on this show's priorities. And then Tabitha tells Timmy that her next plan for Charity is going to be red hot. And what is this plan going to be? We don't know for another 6 episodes, because now the show goes back to focusing on Teresa once again trying to get close to Ethan and Gwen getting jealous over it, capped off by Teresa seeing the romantic setting he's prepared for Gwen at the Crane's cabin and thinking it's for her. It's like a bad movie where a bunch of teens are on the one highway that will take them exactly where they want to go, and they decide, no, let's take that detour through the dark backwoods. Nothing could possibly go wrong from veering that far off course. And this leads to Ethan kissing Teresa by accident, and long story short there, Gwen finds them together and walks out, leading Teresa to declare that she finally has a chance with Ethan. You are just climbing the ladder of my least favorite characters, Teresa. It's gonna take you a while to get to Lucy Van Pelt, but you're approaching Elmira Duff territory. When we get to Tabitha's next plan, it's to burn Charity at the stake for real during a rehearsal for the school pageant. And it looks like this one is going to pay off because she wrecked all the fire extinguishers and no way the fire department can get here in time. Charity! That's cheating! And the fact that Miguel helped rescue her makes things worse when Tabitha reads a prophecy that says Charity will come to her full powers if she falls in love with a man who saves her from 2 fires, and again has Tabitha believing Kay can help her, which she's been teasing for about 30 episodes, I think. And no, for at least the rest of this year, Kay does not become Tabitha's Padawan, so what is even the point here? By December, more than 100 episodes in, the storyline on Luis's father and the Cranes finally starts getting some traction. It turns out that Martin Fitzgerald is in fact alive and indeed living in New Mexico. Only it might not really be him, as Ivy suspects it might be some guy Alistair hired to assume his identity. Oh, if only they didn't recommend not mixing Advil with crazy pills. And ultimately, Sheridan, Luis, and Julian all end up confronting this guy in Santa Fe. I'm guessing the writers would have put it in Albuquerque had the coin come up heads. Oh, and Luis can't be convinced that it's the real Martin Fitzgerald until he finds a pocket knife he knew was his, because he'll apparently remember a pocket knife more than what his own father looks like. Why does Tabitha need to work her evil magic on this town again? It's like there's something in the water that makes them all stupid anyway. And when Julian catches up to Martin, shrugs off his blackmail attempts, and warns him to leave town, Martin decides to do just that and head to Harmony. Is the popcorn ready, or did it get cold waiting for this plotline to actually get good? All of this comes to a head in 2 incidents that occur during the holidays. The first is the town's tree lighting ceremony, which Tabitha tries to use to electrocute Charity and Miguel, at which point at the same time Martin arrives in town and makes his way to the Crane house, where he again tries to blackmail Julian, who responds by trapping Martin in the basement. Are they about to go Clockwork Orange? Because that would explain a lot as to why Spike loved this show so much. While that's going on, Tabitha reads in a prophecy book that someone in Harmony will die at midnight on New Year's, so she decides to just flat out go off with her head concerning Charity, and thus sneaks into the kids' New Year's party dressed as the Grim Reaper. And you didn't try that plan on Halloween because... Martin breaks out, kidnaps Sheridan, and forces this confrontation with Luis on the roof of the seascape where the adults are having their party, and...
My God, it's Martin Fitzgerald. Martin?
Oh my God, no.
So yeah, Luis, Pilar, and Teresa are probably scarred for life from then seeing their long-lost patriarch lying among them, all bleeding and likely dead. Happy New Millennium! Oh, Oh, and Tabitha's beheading fails because her scythe goes impotent for reasons. But Little Miss Goody Ghost fears that Martin's death will cause pain in the town for the whole year, and the release of his dark soul could cause Charity to give in to using her powers for evil! And you know what? That entire mixture of insanity, nonsense, and banality was all just in the first year of this show. Heck, it wasn't even a full calendar year. This was all contained in just 6 months and still took 130 episodes. In fact, you know, the entire series ended up containing more than 2,200 episodes in 9 years. Now you see why I've never covered a soap opera before. I just can't review this thing in one video. Heck, I don't think I could even cover a full season in just one review. We'll come back to Passions at some time in the future, but for now, thanks to all of you for sticking by me through 200 episodes of TV trash. And we're clear! Well guys, not only did we finally get this 200th episode done, but we managed to finally successfully debut our brand new studio.
Can't believe it took you this long to come up with an idea to get us out of that cramped bedroom.
Well, with everything we've had to deal with in the last couple of years, it just took me a while to come up with an idea like this.
Hell, all I can say is you finally came up with a good use for that genie of yours.
Yeah, because having her breathe life into you 4 plush furballs wasn't big enough.